call this one thunk. I didn't learn how to ride a bike until I was 8. My father ran alongside me for years, holding onto my seat, yelling, "Pump harder!" and promising not to let go until I was ready. But I couldn't give up my training wheels. I just couldn't trust myself and let go. Every time I tried, I ended up riding straight into a tree. Thunk. Ouch. Eventually, though, I realized that the tree was probably better than being the only 3rd grader still on training wheels, and I got on with it, thunking, ouching, and all. I was a similarly late bloomer when it came to dating. First, there was the whole high school smart girl crap, where everyone tells you that the boys are just intimidated by your intelligence because they mature more slowly. Don't worry, they'll catch up to you in college. Which sounds good at the time, but it's cold comfort when your mom has to take you out for pity ice cream on the afternoon of the prom, and the car breaks down on the way home, and this just so happens to be the same way to the prom venue, and all of a sudden you're in a panic, crouching down in the back seat on the side of the road, praying that nobody sees you, as a parade of tuxes and colorful prom gowns go by in an excited blur. And then there was college, where I found myself in the 3rd floor men's room of the Phi Psi house at 3 a.m., watching the boys chug beer from a funnel and hose contraption, and wondering, when were they going to get the memo that it was time to catch up to me? So I spent 4 years clinging to my nice, safe friend crush, always on the verge of more than friends, but too scared to risk the friendship by saying anything or making the first move, yet combing every word and deed for a sign that maybe he felt the same way. This was the less enlightened, more furtive, pre-Will and Grace 80s. No one clued me in that if a guy hangs with you all the time, accompanies you to every single formal, introduces you to his parents, and doesn't lay a finger on you for 4 years, probably he's also waiting for the boys, as well as the rest of the civilized world, to catch up to him. So what was I to make of all this? That pretty is better than smart? Was I even pretty? Or maybe not. Was that why I had to wait for someone to appreciate the compensatory parts of me? Were nice guys maybe not what they seem? Should I tone some things down? Should I tone some things up? So when I graduated college, I still felt like the only 3rd grader still on training wheels. I was so confused and inexperienced that I didn't even get the joke when people would laugh at my business card, which they did all the time, because my phone extension was 954-6969. And just to make it more fun, I was in human resources. Then I met Nick, and I discovered that learning to date is actually a lot like learning to ride a bike. I had to learn the rhythm, how to sway between give and take without falling over, how to shift gears as the relationship progressed from easy terrain to hilly and back again. Most importantly, though, I needed to learn how to tell when the ride was over and it was time to jump off the bike. And if our relationship was the ride, Nick was the tree. Of course, this is not the lesson you want to learn when you're a 23-year-old dating newbie who just hopped on, for Christ's sake. So I just kept steering straight into that tree over and over and over again. Thunk. Ouch. Thunk. Ouch. Long after I should have jumped off the damn bike. I should have jumped off when he told me I was fat. I should have jumped off when he criticized my cooking in front of my parents. or when I caught him watching TV over my shoulder while we were riding in a less metaphorical sense. I really should have jumped off when he told me in so many words that he was in love with my best friend. But since he knew she wouldn't have him, he'd settle for me. Thunk. Ouch. Tree, dead ahead. But I didn't jump off because I couldn't give up my training wheels. I just couldn't trust myself and let go. I was a 23-year-old smart girl with no dating smarts who'd been waiting my whole life for the boys to catch up to me. And so far, Nick was the best the universe had to offer me. I had internalized a lifetime's worth of mixed messages telling me that I was no greater than the sum of my parts and that it was my job to make the parts fit the guy, rather than the other way around. And let's face it, unlike when I was 8, dating isn't really a process where you want your father running alongside you, holding onto your seat, yelling, "Pump harder!" and promising not to let go until you're ready. Unless maybe you're the Duggar family at a purity ball. So wasn't the tree better than ending up as the spinster cat lady whose doorbell the kids are all afraid to ring at Halloween? Shouldn't I just get on with it? Nick loved to make grand romantic gestures, but they tended to be narcissistic and miserly, more for his benefit really than mine. Like the time he planned a romantic weekend in Boston, where he pointed out the luxury waterfront inn that he had rejected as not worth it, as if he wanted credit for having considered it in the first place before booking a highway motel 45 minutes outside of the city. I didn't think to ask whether the inn wasn't worth the money, or whether I wasn't worth the inn. Thunk. Ouch. Or when he dropped by unexpectedly to bring me red roses, seemingly for no reason, but coincidentally on the day that I was supposed to host girls' night. It was the first time a boy had ever given me flowers, and I reveled in it for 3 whole minutes, even though 6 seemed like an odd quantity for such a gesture, too many for a casual token, but not quite the traditional dozen. Then he started crowing, "Just wait till your girlfriends see these." And then I saw those half-dozen flowers for what they really were, half-hearted roses. One Friday evening, Nick borrowed my roommate's key so he could surprise me by cooking dinner and having it waiting for me after a long week, which really would have been lovely. Unfortunately, it had been a really bad week at work, and I was definitely coming down with something, and all I really wanted to do was crawl into my sweats, curl up on the couch, and watch Quantum Leap. But there was that damned tree looming again. Nick strutted around like an oblivious rooster, serving up heaping helpings and ignoring my distress. I didn't want to hurt his feelings after all the thought and effort he had put into that dinner, so I choked it down. Of course, all that thought and effort demanded its due. Extravagant thanks and admiration weren't nearly enough. In Nick's view, this gesture deserved nothing less than thank you sex. Thank you sex I didn't want to have, for a gesture I hadn't wanted in the first place, on an evening when I felt like shit. Thunk. Ouch. Well, the training wheels came off that night. No, I did go ahead with the thank you sex, a fact which still makes me cringe. But that was the night that several things clicked into place. A giant Napoleon complex should never, ever be mistaken for attractive self-confidence. Gentle insistence is no less coercive for being gentle. I deserve the wholehearted roses, damn it! And I really, really hated stuffed peppers. I mean, really hated them. Which meant that this time, it was Nick who hit the tree. Because here's the thing, guys, a little tip here. Fingers are not the only things that can trigger a gag reflex. Think about that for a minute. Not so much thunk ouch as thunk splat all over him at precisely the most inopportune moment. I think it's safe to say that to this day, Nick really hates stuffed peppers too. Needless to say, the ride came to a screeching halt. I hopped off the bike, turned in my training wheels, and let myself go. Now, I had actually planned to tell a different story tonight about my first Thanksgiving hosting my in-laws and the exploding turkey smoker. But for some reason, this story kept hijacking the other one, insisting that it wanted to be told. And I don't think that's a coincidence, because I've been hearing Nick's voice a lot this year. I heard it when our office holder-elect, because I refuse to call him president, peddled his teenage daughter as a nice piece of ass. And I remembered the confused teenager I used to be, worried about how my parts added up and whether I would be found lacking. I heard Nick's voice in the casual way this asshat bragged about grabbing pussies and making himself at home, even in semi-public places. And I get mad at my younger self for somehow convincing herself that this was just how some men show affection, physical affection. And every time I hear the newly elected train wreck in chief boast his empty boasts, desperately seeking praise for nothing, over-promising things I don't want and that he can't deliver, I flash back to a litany of narcissistic, controlling gestures. I remember a night when I choked it down, both figuratively and literally, until it all came back up because it had nowhere else to go. In some small way, I'm grateful to Nick, because he reminds me that sometimes we need the tree in order to figure out how to steer and how to let go. And that's what we're doing right now, folks. We are crashing into an entire forest of trees. But if we let it, the ride will force us to face down the most challenging and uncomfortable parts of ourselves, both individually and collectively, and we will learn to trust ourselves and let go until we know how to end this fucking ride. Personally, my first step, I plan to send Der Fuhrer a congratulations note upon his inauguration. In it, I will enclose a recipe for stuffed peppers. And along with that, a note that says, go ahead, keep serving it up. Because the more you push your dick around, the sooner everything will come back up all over you. Hopefully at precisely the most inopportune moment. Thank you.